Hello, my name is Aydın Kaleli. I'm a postdoc researcher at Istanbul University of Faculty of Aquatic Sciences, and in this slide I will talk about marine benthic diatoms from the sensitive and protected area of Yumurtalık Lagoon. First, I should give you some brief data about diatoms. Diatoms are microalgae, they are unicellular, and they are essential for their role for the primary productivity. Also, diatoms produce a huge amount of Earth's oxygen. Diatom cells composed are silica walls. Also, they can live solitary or they can form colonies. Diatoms are used as bioindicators in the last decades, especially in the river systems. Diatoms are used for biomonitoring. Due to these advantages, diatoms can react to environmental changes, and they have rapid reproduction, and also they can be monitored throughout the year. Yumurtalık Lagoon stands in the eastern Mediterranean Sea coast of Turkey. The lagoon is supplied by two major rivers of the region, which are Seyhan and Ceyhan rivers. Also, the lagoon is under the influence of Adana metropolitan city and the industrial zone of the Iskenderun Gulf in the east. Diatom samples were collected from the Yumurtalık Lagoon in April of 2015. The samples were collected by two methods. First, submerged stones were sampled by the help of a toothbrush, and second, the soft bottom were sampled by the help of a spoon. Physicochemical parameters were measured during the diatom sampling. According to the values, water temperature was tempered at nearly 16 degrees. Also, conductivity and dissolved oxygen values were relatively higher. After collecting the samples, diatoms were brought to the laboratory for further use. For this, first of all, diatom samples were cleaned with hydrochloric acid, and then it was cooked by hydrogen peroxide to remove the carbonates. And after, permanent slides were prepared. Knife racks was used to mount the slides. Diatom samples were investigated by light microscopy. For this, diatoms were counted under the light microscopy, and then it followed the identifications. The identifications made the followed Witkowski and his colleagues. First of all, the genera were determined, and after species were identified according to the books. The results revealed a low biodiversity, and in total only 19 genera were observed, and also only 45 species were observed in the area. In the right side in the plate you can see some of the different species. In the chart, in the left column, you can see the species number represented in the genera. According to the results, genus Navicula was represented with the highest numbers of species, with 7 species, and it was followed by Nitzschia and Amphora with 6 species, and after Coconeis followed with 5 species. In the right column, you can find the most abundant genera in the sampling area, and according to the results, the relative abundance of Novicula was the highest, with nearly 30% of the total species, and it was followed by Actanthes, Nitzschia, and Coconeis. In the pie chart, you can see the most abundant species relative abundance. According to the results, Navicula confer gregaria was the most dominant species in the sampling area with 22%, and after Actanthes brevipes followed with 16%. And interestingly, Triplionella was represented with 2 species, which were lower than 10% in the relative abundance, and the remaining species were represented nearly with the half of the relative abundance with 51%. Here you can see the most abundant species of Yumurtalık lagoon. Interestingly, on the right side bottom, Tripleonella were represented with two species, and also Coconaeus placentula in the left bottom can be present both in freshwater and marine waters. Tabularia fasciculata, one of the other abundant species, however, showed less relative abundance than the others, can be observed also in marine waters, and Acnanthes brevis are known as the early settlers of the marine waters, and they can be observed usually in spring. The first results of the benthic diatom composition in the Yumurtalık lagoon gave us some insights. First of all, Yumurtalık lagoon is a protected coastal wetland in the eastern Mediterranean basin. However, according to our results, low numbers of species were observed in this area. In places like this, in protected and sensitive places, biodiversity are usually expected to be high. However, here it was contrast to our results. And among these factors, salinity is an important driver for diatom biodiversity. Usually, in higher salinities, rich biodiversity is expected. However, similarly, here, even though the salinity levels were higher, there were low biodiversity in the area. It was also notable that pollution-tolerant genera such as Navicula, Nitzschia, and Tribunella were the common species in the area, and as a result, is we can see that diatom composition of the Yumurtalık lagoon should be monitored with the aid of more environmental parameters such as nutrients, because diatoms are mainly affected by nutrients. For instance, nitrogen or phosphorus can affect diatom growth or their succession. In addition, salinity is an important factor. For all of these, long-term benthic diatom assessment should be done in these areas, in these sensitive areas, and this will help to observe the diatom community change in the area, and also we will have more idea about the factors affecting the protected area for long-term biomonitoring to preserve these areas. And thank you very much for your attention.